Hey YouTube, Isaac here. Today, I want to show you this awesome folding knife. It's got some history, it's vintage, and I just really love it. I think it's super cool. And this is the Almar Model 3003 SERE Attack. Now, this knife came out I think around 1983. The first prototypes were from 82, and was definitely in circulation around 83 to 84. It's been said that this was the first production model folding knife to hit the $100 price point. And if you were around in 1983, you'd know that $100 took you a little bit further than it does today in 2024 while I'm making this video. So as you can see, you're not really looking at a knife, you're looking at a sheath. So it is a belt sheath folding knife. It comes wrapped, at least this particular model comes wrapped in a camouflage cordura. It is leather, see how thick that is? And on the back, typically, this would have the camouflage on it as well, but, the knife is, between 30 and 40 years old. It came off over time. So maybe we'll get something to cover that up or just leave as is. Doesn't really matter to me. This is a heavy package, but it is a heavy, big knife. So let's open it up here, snap on, and pull out the knife, and we'll have that on the table. Now, this knife has an added bonus. Oh yeah, here, check this out. It says SERE on the snap flap here, and it's got the Almar logo. Now, all these knives came with a sharpening stone. I believe is it diamond or is it just a whetstone? I think it's just a whetstone. But a nice sharpening stone. Now, it is very rare that these knives being sold on the market, secondary market today, still have that sharpening stone. I'm very lucky to have that for my collection. Now, this knife was made in a partnership with Almar, the owner of Almar Knives. Started his knife company in 1979 after having been the chief designer for Gerber knives for, probably all of the 70s. And yeah, all the 70s until that point. Started in the late 60s. So if you like those classic Gerber knives from back in the day, chances are it's because they were designed by the genius and Blade Magazine Hall of Famer, Almar. Almar was a Green Beret, Special Forces guy. He's probably from the late 50s to early 60s, was in Special Forces, and he was in Vietnam in the very early stages of American involvement there, part of a team of all Asian Americans who went over there. Back then we were more advisors to ARVN, the Republic of Vietnam's army, to counter movements and stuff from the National Liberation Front, who we most commonly know as the Viet Cong. Now, I believe they knew each other from their days in the Green Berets. I don't believe they have any involvement in Vietnam together, but knew each other stateside. Was a person named James Nick Rowe. Nick was his middle name. He typically goes by Nick. Nick Rowe was an officer. He was a lieutenant when he was in Vietnam in 1963. and was captured during an armed engagement. We had some really bad intelligence. Our advisors, there was a handful of them with Arvin going out to stop a Viet Cong platoon, which turned out to be much more than a platoon. It was an entire regiment, and they only had 2 platoons, so they were very outnumbered. Actually, I'll take that back. I know it was a company of Arvin with, I think, 3 American advisors. Nick, a guy named Rocky, and a guy named Dan. And all 3 of them were captured and were prisoners of war. Now, Rocky was captured. He had been shot 3 times in the leg. His name was Rocky Versace. You can look him up. He was detained and was very mentally combative with the front. He would not give in or listen to any of their communist crap that they would push on these prisoners to show their side of the war. And they eventually executed him. Now, Nick Rowe eventually escaped from the prison camps in 1968. He was a prisoner for 5 years, and he wrote a book about his experiences called 5 Years to Freedom. When he returned to the United States, he campaigned in Congress and to President Nixon himself to make sure that Rocky Versace was awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor for his heroic actions and dedication to the United States while a prisoner. Now, flash forward about a dozen years or so. Nick Rowe has been promoted to colonel, and he's heading up the Army SERE School, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape. And he wants a knife that people can have on their person, like on their belt of their pants, not on their web gear and chest rigs and whatnot, that they're gonna drop the first moment when the going gets tough, because it's too heavy, it gets stuck in the brush. So they want something to really carry on their belt and have with them at all times, but have it also be tough and reliable. So he worked with his buddy Almar to create this. This is a big knife, guys. Look at it. We got it. It's got to be 6 inches in handle length. We'll open it up here. Nail nick opening. This is old school still. Look at a nice thick stock. Hear that snap? Look at that. That's a 4 1/4 inch blade. And this is micarta. Looks like nice wood grain, but it's actually micarta. Lockback design. You can hold it up here like that. You can choke back a little bit. That way you can, put your thumb here for thrusting tasks. Super cool blade shape. And the Almar logo here. Brass liners. It's surprisingly not a super thick knife. I'm very pleased with the width and how this fits in my hand. These are smooth and polished, pinned in, as you can see. Lanyard tube. Show that. Made in Seki, Japan. And this was approved for use and issue in Army SERE School, which Nick Rowe was in charge of. Because he wanted to help others to both avoid what he had been through in Vietnam, and if they do get into a situation, to be able to escape like he did. And this knife would hopefully be able to help them do that. Blade steel on this is AM6, which you'll say, what the heck is that? Well, it's not really around anymore, but an equivalent that also not really around anymore would be AUS6, which is stain resistant and tough and easy to sharpen. So ease of sharpening is key to those special ops guys from back in the day. I'm sure probably still today too. They don't need the M390 steels and whatnot that are made for maximum edge retention and have that super high Rockwell hardness. They want to be able to sharpen this on a rock out in the field when they're using this for real combat work, survival work. So they made it out of that steel. And of course you got your sharpening stone in there as a companion for this. The knife itself here weighs a little over 11 ounces. And a full package on your belt with the sheath and stone, we got 17 ounces. So this is not a light knife by any means. But I do think it's something to rely on. There was a guy whose name you may know, working for Elmar at the time these were made. His name is Bill Harsey. So he was helping out, with prototypes and stuff of this and get them all ready to go for manufacturing in Japan. Now these are long discontinued. I believe they made them into the 90s. But, you don't see knives like that anymore. But the design lives on. This is the newest iteration, the SERE T36. That is brand new for 2024. So keep your eye out at different dealers that stock Almar knives. You'll notice it is quite a bit smaller. Now, this knife came in 3 different sizes as well. So you would have one that was about this size, and then one smaller with about a 3-inch blade. This is a 3.6-inch blade. So I think the mid-size one of this, was like a 3.4-inch blade, so just a tad smaller than that. And then the smallest was like right at 3 inches. And they make one, and they call it the mini SERE. That's a 3-inch of this style. So here is like 40 years of evolution in the knife industry. You got this big old lockback, polished micarta, nice bolster to G10 scales, S35 VN steel, liner lock, and flipper. So it's pretty interesting. It's an awesome collectible. Yeah, I even got some oil running out from the pivot there, but this is just a phenomenal piece of cutlery, guys. I really hope you look these up. Look up Nick Rowe, Rocky Versace. See what they went through in Vietnam. Look up Al Mar as well. He made lots of great knives back in the 80s, early 90s when he was still alive. He passed away, I think in 1992. But his company still lives on. It's making knives. So hopefully you enjoyed seeing this and learning some history. And I'll see you on the next video.